I got a riddle for you. What's brown and sticky? A stick. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2 or PF2. I love PF2, and as a longtime player of D&D and a bunch of other random crap, I want to share the things that I find along the way that are just fascinating. Today, we'll be going over the promised archetypes that synergize well with the Witch class and the Witch Multiclass Archetype and how it works with other classes. First, Witch overview. You're a spellcaster with a magical friend, a patron, who tells your familiar things to make you go do. This magical friend also puts spells in your familiar that you can cast, and they can be of any spell tradition depending on which patron you choose. You also can add a variety of specialty-focused spells, hexes, and themes depending on your feat selection, lessons. Because witches are so flexible, you can make almost any kind of theme with a witch. First, a brief message. I'll be skipping over any multiclass archetype that doesn't do very much for the witch, even if it has abilities that technically help. Like, armor technically helps, but if you're a caster, does it matter? Maybe, maybe not. I do want to make note of my favorite archetypes for the witch that are not multiclass archetypes, specifically the Herbalist and Familiar Master. The Herbalist because their abilities are quite in line thematically with witches of folklore, and because the Cauldron feat synergizes with the poultices from this archetype to create more of them at once. It's just cool. Minor buff, but it's just cool. And Familiar Master because there's a bunch of minor little tricky things you can do with your familiar, like shoot fireballs around corners. What multiclass archetypes add something to the witch that really helps them? Bards add a lot of options. Like, see, I didn't forget the bard this time. I usually hate bards, but in this video, they're actually in it. So, bards add a lot of options like healing, buffing allies, bardic lore, a lot of stuff that supports your allies that, paired with a support-based witch, maybe with a little battlefield control, are quite useful. Champion archetype is useful if you're going the melee witch route, which you probably won't, because living hair and eldritch nails suck. Eldritch nails suck, for now. And that means that you only need to prioritize, if you go the champion route for melee, you would only need to prioritize strength, dexterity, constitution, charisma, and intelligence. Yeah, no. Cleric can be a fun way to get flavorful focus spells by taking Domain Initiate just to enhance the flavor you already have. Like you're a Curse Witch and you take Cleric, then Domain Initiate and Lift Nature's Call. I freaking love this focus spell. This spell can make people sickened, stupefied, frightened, and keep their frightened condition from going below 1 while you're in the area. Freaking awesome. But the flavor text is the best part to me. With a wave of your hand, you cause the targets to see the world around them as if a gauzy film had been lifted away to expose the truth that lies below their perceived reality. Natural features they can see grow twisted and horrendous. Structures appear distorted and ruined, and objects seem warped and alien. This is just fun. It also brings back a line from one of my favorite movies, Warlock. Welcome to the other side of reality. You just have to say that dramatically when you cast it. Druid is another one that can be added to Witch to enhance flavor, like giving a Curse Witch the Wildfire focus spell, and suddenly you're a witch who despises nature, and you try to destroy all plant life you see. You could do it. It's called a Blight Fire Druid? Or Blighter? I think it's just called a Blighter. Which I know is slang. From 3rd edition. Kineticist can be a little useful for the healing and utility options it can give, even armor. It's cool, it's just very niche abilities that are helpful. And they wouldn't be helpful for every witch build. Well, it just depends. Psychic gives you things that you just can't get as a witch, or anything else, like a multi-layered shield that you can put on other people. There are some neat tricks by adding the Psychic archetype to Witch. Summoner archetype, like for any class, can give you a pet, but it takes actions to use, so you may just take the Beast Eidolon and use it as a barrier on the battlefield, because it's large. Or Fey Eidolon and have it cast spells, which is fun in theory, but as a witch, you probably always need your actions, whether it's sustaining spells or casting a hex with your last action. There's always something you can do as a witch. I mean, I guess you could even, like, Hi. Pull out a crossbow and fire it. So Summoner will rarely be useful besides for story purposes. But it is fun for that purpose. Thaumaturge, like for any class, gives you an implement that, at 6th level, can give you a dependable, useful, and fun ability, like using the amulet to protect other people, or chalice to heal them. Mostly good for support, but definitely nice on a witch. And the theme, witch, thaumaturge, it just feels right. Okay, so now, why would each class take the witch archetype? Take your time. Okay, so now why would each class take the witch archetype? Alchemist. An alchemist is a lot of fun, buffing yourself into a monstrous battle machine or lobbing explosive fire and acid, but they have finite resources. Yeah, if they have downtime to craft stuff, they have more, but they're still finite. Adding a witch archetype means gaining cantrips, and you can choose damaging cantrips of whatever tradition you like. Plus, the alchemist is already based on intelligence, so a witch dip is a good way to get primal, occult, or divine spells that they get to add their intelligence on. Arcane too, but adding intelligence to primal spells is more uncommon. Barbarian. Okay, you could take witch to gain access to divine spells and buff yourself before combat starts, as long as you don't have to sustain the spell because rage. Well, there is actually some useful synergy with the living hair feat, because it means that you'll always have a weapon on hand that can disarm or choke someone. I spoke to a guy on Reddit who used athletics with the Barbarian witch archetype on top of the Barbarian, because you're always able to grapple with it when you get to that level of feat. So anyway, it's a kind of cool idea. And the sight of a Barbarian running around whipping people with their hair is just awesome. It reminds me of a headbanger. Bard. Why would Bard want witch archetype? Hi. Because bards only gain access to the occult tradition, and you can take a witch archetype that gains access to any tradition you like, you can use the witch to really fill out the nuances of your character concept, or fill in weaknesses in your flexibility. You could take Fervor Patron for heal spells, or for more buff spells for your allies, or even for yourself if you're a particularly combative bard, which is uncommon because they suck at it. Or arcane spells for more damage options or control spells. Yeah, Divine and Primal have more to offer a bard than Arcane or more Occult. But even those could be chosen for just more spells. As far as Witch Lessons, Lesson of Life is useful for the healing Hex Focus spell Life Boost, or Lesson of the Elements for literally everything it offers. It gives Elemental Betrayal, which will help add a little bit more damage to your spells, or a lot if the spell does persistent elemental damage. And you get your choice of elemental spell with that lesson, so customization's good. Champion. Champion and Witch don't have a lot of crossover, except a Witch with Fervor Patron could add some more divine spells and buff yourself even further for combat. Because you're already focusing on so many attributes with Champion, you don't have the extra intelligence to spare to make damaging Witch cantrips very useful. Champion is probably better combined with Kineticist than Witch. Still, you could use Witch as another stepping stone for theme or story. You could eventually get a Divine Familiar if you want. Like a little angelic bug. A slug with angel wings. Cleric. Witch has benefits that clerics don't have access to, like their lessons that can debuff that can debuff enemies, or direct damage spells that the cleric doesn't really have much of. Actually, the Witch has the ability to enhance any aspect of a cleric. Physical combat, Primal Tradition spells to enhance defense, healing, and unarmed strikes, arcane spells for enhancing weapon attacks, direct damage spells, utility, and controlling spells, even occult spells for creepy, spooky damage and mind control psychic tricks. You can make clerics a lot more versatile and flavorful with witches. A new spell tradition, a familiar, lesson feats, even new weird unarmed attacks. Clerics are based on wisdom, while witches are based on int. Unless, of course, you're a melee cleric. It's a little bit different. So you probably won't want to take damaging cantrips with witch when you choose the witch archetype when playing a cleric. But that's just for optimization. I mean, they still work. They just aren't as awesome. Druid. Druid gain abilities based on the elements, and so can Witch. Both can get a Leshy familiar, but a Druid can have an animal companion and a familiar at the same time, and if a Druid wants a familiar, then they can either take the Leshy familiar feat that Druids have access to, or take the Witch archetype, and it's a familiar that comes along with more spells and access to cool lesson feats, and they can choose different kinds of familiar instead of just a Leshy. The lessons really sell the Druid combo here for me because you can add a new flavor to your Druid entirely, like curses or sleep or yet another way to change your appearance. But the Druid could get the shield spell or bless, charm, draw ire, echoing weapon, lots of stuff that they don't normally have access to. So, Witch Druid sandwich is delicious. It's sauerkraut and toadstool sandwich. Fighter. A fighter benefits from taking Witch archetype mainly from the healing, defensive, and protection spells, so Divine Tradition spells are probably the best bet for all of these purposes. And you're a little cleric-y with a familiar too, I guess, and you can use your fighter abilities with your tripping hair. Sure, why not? Okay, so Witch doesn't help every class a lot, but it helps a little. Gunslinger. Okay, Gunslingers already have ranged attacks that do decent damage, don't care much about intelligence, and taking a spellcasting archetype would really be for just very niche purposes, like taking the Lesson of Life to heal yourself, or to get your familiar, to give it independence, and skilled, I think it's called, so that it can just demoralize enemies every round for you. Why not? I suppose I should point out that you could take invisible item to turn your gun invisible, so you can sneak it into places, because what's a gunslinger without their gun? So most of what you would use Witch for would be utility, like making yourself invisible, or hard to hit. Inventor. I just love Inventor. Inventor is fertile ground for making a lot of character concepts come to life. Okay, so to get started, Inventor is an intelligence-based class, so it enhances Witch spells well. I think the thing I love most about Inventor/Witch together is that you can use your class as a cover for all of your spell work and explain away the magic by calling it technology. Like stim packs. Interestingly, this is sort of the basis of the 5e D&D Artificer. It gets spells and suggests that you flavor the spells as machinery. So we do that with Pf2, and instead of like the Needle Darts spell, you have a gun that's a needle launcher. Or Ray of Frost becomes Mr. Freeze's Freeze Ray. Also, there are different spell traditions for each Inventor innovation, or you can mix and match. You can take the Armor innovation, and you already have Shield Block, because that's what you get as an Inventor. And you can use Eldritch Claws or Living Hair, and enter combat buffing yourself with Primal Tradition spells, as the Armor. Or if you have weapon innovation, you could take Arcane or Divine to buff yourself or your weapon, or even your allies. So Inventor meshes quite well with Witch in a bunch of different directions. I guess Witch just helps Inventor just be cooler and more useful. Yeah, I like Witch. Obviously. Investigator. Investigator is intelligence-based, but it has no spellcasting. Since you're already going with intelligence to be an investigator, you'll get a good bonus on your Witch damage spells if you take the Witch archetype. I would probably take Arcane with Investigator because it has an array of damage cantrips and it has several spells that synergize well with what it is to be an investigator. Detect magic, detect metal, root reading for tracking, shield, magic, weapon, breadcrumbs, also for tracking, charm, conductive weapon, flashy disappearance, grim tendrils, because it's the first level AoE spell. Illusory Disguise. Those are just the cantrips and first level spells, which you would gain by level 4 with Witch archetype. An Alchemical Sciences Investigator gets alchemy formulas and can use Quick Tincture to make elixirs or tools throughout the day. If you take Witch archetype and the Cauldron feat, you now have access to alchemy and potions and oils, which is just a shit ton of flexibility, which is very comforting in an adventure when you have just what you need at the right time. I gotta say that if you take the interrogation methodology, I love the idea of taking either Arcane or Divine for torturous trauma, because that's like the purpose of torturous trauma. So you're interrogating using pointed question, the investigator ability, and if you don't get the information you want, just use torturous trauma and then go back to pointed question. Granted, there is no mechanical benefit to doing both, but it just makes sense to me. Kineticist gets blasting automatically, plus options for defense and AoE damage. Taking a spellcasting archetype will pretty much always be used to give a Kineticist flexibility with utility spells. The witch feats that enhance spells cannot be used with kinetic impulses, because they're not spells. So let's look at the other witch feats. Wart Witch is a fun feat for overall theme for a wood kineticist, just cuz. It'll make you feel like you're really one with wood and plant life everywhere. Basic Lesson offers some interesting options, mainly Lesson of the Elements for extra damage on air, fire, or water blasts. There are also the Lesson of Life for the life boost hex to heal you while in combat, or the Lesson of Protection to protect you or an ally. Some good, useful stuff here. Magus. Magus. The Redeemer of Eldritch Nails. Seriously, the Magus is the only way, currently in system, to do what the Eldritch Nails advertises but ultimately fails to do. So I think that the Magus can actually be a better melee witch than a melee witch. If you take the Witch archetype at level 2, and then at level 4 you take the Nails feat, the Eldritch Nails feat, you can channel your hexes through your claws as Paizo intended, and all of your other spells. I guess since the Magus is an arcane caster, I would probably take Primal for access to a little healing and the ability to make your claws do more damage in combat. If you take the lessons, the Lesson of Life really helps out a Magus with healing, because melee, especially if you have claws, or the Lesson of the Elements helps the damage a Magus can dish out. You do have to keep sustaining it though, so, well, the Cackle feat gives you a focus point, and the Cackle Hex lets you sustain a spell without taking an action on your turn to do so, so it alleviates some of the pressure for use of your actions, which you use every turn to spell, strike, recharge, repeat. And that allows you to relax a little more at the table on your turns, knowing that you have flexibility and options. Like, your spell is up, you just cackle, spend a focus point, and then do your spell strike. It's more a relaxed way of playing, if you will. The Witch is a very strong choice for a Magus mechanically, thematically, and will even make your Magus more comfortable and fun to play. It sounds like I'm making a commercial, but it's true. Monk. Monks don't really have the attributes to spare to make their intelligence very high. So if you're able to take Witch at all with Monk, you'll probably limit yourself to spells which buff yourself in combat or offer utility. Buffing yourself will likely be best served with Primal Tradition to make your natural attacks, well, your unarmed attacks, stronger, or Divine to provide yourself some defensive and healing options. Utility could be gained through arcane or occult traditions for things like invisibility, illusions, and detection spells. Having a familiar can be a fun option for a monk who rarely gets a companion like this, and can allow for a lot more role-playing options than a monk alone. How about a Veneran with a chimp familiar and the spell Mad Monkeys? So you're a monkey monk with a monkey and monkeys. You know, if you say that enough times, it doesn't feel like a word anymore. Monkey. 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 It doesn't take long. Oracle. This is a big fat class. Oracles are usually dedicated casters, so you'll probably be able to get away with buffing your intelligence, since they usually only focus on their charisma, and maybe dex for survival. Yes, I know, Constitution exists too, but not getting crit is better than having a few more hit points. Oracle starts with divine spells and can use feats to pick some spells from other traditions, but including which really increases the flexibility here. I wouldn't bother worrying very much about which tradition you take when picking your patron, so much as how it's going to mesh with your oracular curse, your mystery. You can pick something that enhances your theme pretty well. I'll go over a few ideas by mystery. Ash. The Ash mystery does fire damage, so for lessons I would take Lesson of Elements to enhance the fire damage that you do, plus the ability to choose a spell that has a non-fire option like Pummeling Rubble, which can do damage and also knock people back 5 or 10 feet. Cackle is also a nice boost in efficacy to keep your spells sustained and doing damage or giving debilitating effects for longer, plus if you take Cackle, you have 3 focus points from a really low level. Oracle is nearly full anyway. You get 2. The Bones Mystery is mainly just good at surviving, though I like the idea of a Cursed Patron Bones Oracle with Cackle and Living Hair, just because it's freaky on top of freaky with a side of freaky. The Flames Mystery Oracle, like Ash, can benefit from Lesson of Elements to enhance the fire damage that you do. Similarly, Tempest, like Flames and Ash, can benefit from the Lesson of Elements to enhance the cold and lightning damage that you do. So in other words, Witch can increase elemental damage or help with theme. Or tactics, because you can choose other traditions. Psychic doesn't gain a lot from taking a Witch archetype, other than the obvious and new spell tradition and more spells. Obviously, I wouldn't choose the occult tradition, because that's what psychics do. Pretty much just theme and flavor. And, of course, like healing, divine traditions, stuff like that. Ranger, like other martial classes, could benefit from the spells that could buff their weapons, or speed, or give conditions or penalties to enemies. The most important thing would probably be healing, since they just can't do that in combat. And a Fervor Divine Tradition, which, with the Lesson of Life, could really bump up a Ranger's survivability in combat. Especially a Flurry Ranger that attacks a black pudding with knives. Oops. Rogue Mastermind. Sorry, rogues. In general, it's a spellcasting archetype that gets spells. Cool. Mastermind specifically can obviously benefit from taking Witch because they're both intelligence-based, and a Mastermind could fit well with the Arcane Tradition or Occult Tradition patrons, depending on whether you want to gain information or mess with enemies' heads. And of course, they would gain spells and lessons and blah 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 from Witch, like other martials. Familiars. Sorcerer can benefit from picking up a Witch Multiclass Archetype in the same general ways that other spellcasting classes can. You get a different spellcasting tradition to pull from, and you get the lessons. But because both the Sorcerer and Witch have defining themes, Bloodline and Patron, you can further accentuate or nuance those themes, like the flavor of my soda changed with a cattail. My favorite, by far, is taking the Sorcerer Hag Bloodline and then taking the Patron Mosquito Witch for the Primal Tradition spells and that yummy, buggy, swampy flavor that hags are known for. Then take the Witch Lesson of Vengeance for Needle of Vengeance, Hex, and Phantom Pain. These are just adding on to the haggy goodness that the Sorcerer is already good at. The Hag Sorcerer Bloodline's focus spell, Jealous Hex, is amazing. I think that the most hag-like caster is actually the Sorcerer, which is sad to me. I built a very hag-like witch that will be the build video released for this witch series, just to let you know. It's coming out. And when it's out, the link will be in the description. Summoner. The Summoner is a great chassis on which to add whatever flavor, because there's so many available themes for Summoner. Each of your Eidolons has a different feel to it and gives you access to a different spell list. I like taking the Fey or Plant Eidolons, specifically Plant Eidolon, and then the Wart Witch feat for little plant, leshy, familiar, and the power to see through shrubbery, because lots of the same theme. Or a Fey Eidolon summoner casts primal spells and can pull enchantment and illusion spells from the arcane spell list. So it could be paired with something like either the Fervor Patron for Witch, for the command spell, which is messing with people's heads. And you also get divine spells to like heal and protect yourself and your pet. Or better yet, Night for the occult spell list and Sleep, just to mess with people's heads more. It goes with the Fae thing. Lesson of Protection for Mage Armor and other defensive options, or Lesson of Vengeance for Needle of Vengeance, are also just options depending on which way you want to go with your Summoner. It's just enhancing what's there with other abilities. There's just so many freaking options and combinations with Summoner. It's nearly limitless. I guess I could make like a bunch of different summoners that have different witch themes. That sounds like fun. I know Ronald the Rules Lawyer did that too, but that'd be fun. Anyway, Swashbuckler. It's a martial class and benefits from Witch archetype by getting spells and lessons. In this case, maybe you want arcane spells for some fallback ranged cantrips and weapon enhancement spells. Arcane makes sense to me. Or divine for healing. I'm gonna mention that with all of them because that's how you get healing spells is divine. Or the primal spell is for wild shape. Swashbuckling bear. Or occult because you really like messing with people's heads or torturing them, or you're into tentacles. You know, whatever you're into is fine, I guess. Thaumaturge. A thaumaturgy with witch archetype. Oh yeah, I love this. Thaums are all about being into spooky dark secrets and researching beings of divine madness. Maybe learning some secret rituals. And then you take Wild Witch Patron and Lesson of Dreams and you become a fairy witch. You go dancing through the magical land of fairies. Obviously just contradicting the creepy Thaum feel. Or maybe we go the more mythological route and the Fae drive people insane and trap them in bargains they can't deal with, so your magical happy fairy person is actually cursing people and messing with their heads. Alright, so you'll probably take a patron that complements what you normally do, but there are a lot of combinations you can make with Thaumaturgy and Witch. They just go together like peanut butter and sardines. Because peanut butter's gross. Yeah. Witch. If you're a witch class and you take the witch archetype, the world implodes because you just divided by 0. You can't do that. You're already a witch. You can't be a witch. Or if you really want to be, then if you're a witch, take Eldritch Researcher or Familiar Master or Ritualist or Scion of Demora or Herbalist or Talisman Dabbler. There. Now you're a witchier witch, even if you took Talisman Dabbler. Ugh. They're amazing. Wizard. Wizard and Witch both use intelligence, so that's a plus, obviously. If you take the Witch archetype and you're already a wizard, the most mechanically useful option is to take a patron that gives you a different spell list, like Occult, and go the creepy wizard deep underground route, maybe building thematically toward Lich. Or maybe you just are a control freak, so you need to take primal spells to be able to control plants and animals in addition to the people you already brainwash. Enchanters are annoying, especially for the DM. Ah. Okay, so a witch is basically a wizard with more flavor. So if you add just about any witchiness to wizard, you're basically a more bookish, brilliant, and nerdy witch. Yeah. But it's interesting because you can take the collegiate route and just add whatever flavor of witch you want onto it, and it makes that person deeper because they're in slightly different directions askew from each other, but they can build together. It's cool. Thank you all for watching this. You make this channel what it is, and I appreciate you being here every day. This is fun. Thank you for being here. Anyway, thank you to our lovely patron people too. I couldn't do this without you. I release unique videos on Patreon, do giveaways, and our top level patrons get one-on-one time with me, and I make them whatever they want once a month. Link below to check it out. Oh, and they get free dice every month. Just 'cause. Our website has build walkthroughs and character sheets for each build video. The link's in the description. If you want to make sure to catch the next video I make, hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell is a good way to do so. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, comment, or share to tell the algorithm gods that you like me. Or at least that I don't suck much. And remember, if you lose the pinky of your hand, you'll lose 50% of the strength of that hand. So if you start collecting pinkies, you get 50% stronger per pinky. It's just logic. Life hack. Oh yeah. If you want to check out the lessons overview for witches, you can click here. And if you want to see the Magus overview and the Magus breakdown of archetypes, you can click here.